How you guys doing today? Welcome back to the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Manny Maradiegue, here on a Tuesday, January 21st, here to talk some more football with you guys, more stuff around the NFL, talking a little bit more of the games we saw over the weekend, some topics related to that, but also just some things looking forward and, just topics in general around the NFL. Some things like Ben Johnson, we didn't get too much of a chance to talk about him yesterday because of the recentness of the news. So we're going to get into it more today, as well as looking at the divisional round, giving some overreactions to what we saw from those games in relation to the winners. We're going to talk about Jaden Daniels. Is he having the best rookie season of NFL history? All those things and more coming up on today's show, so make sure to stick around. And before we get started though, I'd like to remind you guys, if you have any questions or comments or just any opinions you'd like to share, please don't hesitate to let us know what you're thinking. Your thoughts, your insight and input into anything always adds a lot to these live shows, just to give us a different perspective and maybe think about something that we didn't originally think of when talking about these segments. So if you want to make it absolutely sure that your message stands out and gets featured on the show, there's an easy way to do that, just by using the new Super Chat feature. Just click the $ at the bottom of the chat box to send in your Super Chat. In this way, it guarantees that your message gets on the air. I'm able to see it, read it out loud, and get your guys' thoughts on anything related to the topic on hand. So let us know what you're thinking. Hit the Super Chat button and get involved with the show. So with that being said, the biggest thing to talk about, just to start off the show, is obviously the news related to Ben Johnson, now the head coach of the Chicago Bears. We ended yesterday's show by briefly mentioning it and just giving our pretty new thoughts on it, with the whole idea that the Bears were still finalizing this deal to make Ben Johnson their new head coach. And I don't know if I missed the official announcement, but it seems pretty set in stone now, especially today with, I don't know if you guys saw it on social media, how the Bears posted a video of Ben Johnson there at Hallis Hall, probably going over things with Ryan Poles, the whole organization basically. He had his family there, and it was a pretty cool moment just because he was there in front of everybody, the staff, and just kind of giving like a brief statement there to everybody at Hallis Hall, which was pretty cool to see the reception and everything like that. So if that's not pretty much set in stone, then I don't know what is. But yeah, I mean, Johnson's now in charge of the Chicago Bears. That is the next chapter that will be entering with the Chicago Bears. And not only this, but it's already moving pretty quickly in regards to who could be joining Ben Johnson here as part of his coaching staff. It's been moving pretty quickly already because ESPN has already posted some things regarding their defensive coordinator position and special teams coordinator as well, with ESPN saying that the Saints' former head coach this past season, Dennis Allen, if you guys remember, also was fired about halfway through the season. He is said to be the favorite right now to join the Bears as the defensive coordinator. As of right now, he's the leading candidate to take up that spot. But again, those are just reports coming out. And also, in regards to the Saints, after Dennis Allen was fired, their special teams coordinator, Darren Rizzi, was promoted to interim head coach. And now that the Saints are looking for a full-time head coach now, not an interim head coach, Darren Rizzi is also being linked to the Chicago Bears as being their special teams coordinator as well. But unlike Dennis Allen, Darren Rizzi also has other head coaching opportunities or just other interviews out there with other franchises. So that one might take a little bit longer, but there's already starting to be some names, some candidates out there to potentially join Ben Johnson on his staff. So things are moving pretty quickly, and the assistant coaches are important. Those are fundamental to building not only the team, the atmosphere and everything, but really getting your message out across to everybody. But it's not as important as, the quarterback and Caleb Williams, and really owning the fact that his development is the biggest thing that is on the Chicago Bears' mind above anything else. I think, at least for this season, right? Usually teams go into the season thinking about, how can they improve, what could be their ceiling eventually, what and how far they could get in the season and things like that. How are they going to get better over the course of the season? But I think with the Chicago Bears first is really getting this huge investment in Caleb Williams, really under their tutelage, under their teachings, and really get him to show why he was worthy of that number one overall pick. Because I think he's very talented. I think he's got endless amounts of abilities and things like that. But the first year didn't go as planned at all. They drafted him number one overall. And not only has he had 3 offensive coordinators, 2 head coaches already in a pretty up and down year for Caleb Williams, but they drafted him number one overall, and the guy right behind them that was drafted is currently playing in the NFC Championship game. So that, by comparison, these 2 guys are always going to be linked, as well as all the other quarterbacks. But really, Caleb and Jaden are always going to be linked just because the Bears had the opportunity to take either one of them. And you want to make sure that this investment was the right decision. And I still think it can be, but that's why this process now is so important for Ben Johnson and developing Caleb Williams, because they need to put an end to this pretty bad reputation that the Bears have going about rookie quarterbacks not succeeding there and just never having a true franchise guy. And I think Caleb, by far, is the closest thing they've ever had to that, so they can't mess up this opportunity and be in a situation like the Jaguars are right now with Trevor Lawrence, like the Jets were with all their quarterbacks as well. The Bears are included in that group, which is not something you want to be a part of. So I think they have a great opportunity here, still with a very good, built-up roster with DJ Moore and Rome Odunze, who they drafted, Cole Kmet, if they bring back Keenan Allen, and their defense is still very, very good. So the biggest thing for me was that they just needed some sort of direction and guidance, really, because they have all the pieces, but everyone's not really, moving to the beat of the same drum, right, if that makes sense. So with that all being said, Caleb also, in this decision, he really wasn't shy about letting his feelings be known about his admiration for Ben Johnson. He appeared on the St. Brown Brothers podcast recently, and they asked him about him, and he really didn't shy away too much from it. He still kept it pretty biased, but you could tell that he wanted Ben Johnson, and I'm sure he's elated that Ben Johnson and now him can build this relationship going forward. And I really like the hire also because I think Ben Johnson is a guy that can really improve the team just on his own ability and his ability and knack for schemes, formations, and really just calling a team and giving them the blueprint to operating at a very high level. Whereas, other coaches, other, assistant coaches or just personnel out there might, you say, benefit from a very talented team. And more often than not, it's the players, it's having a veteran quarterback, it's having, great receivers, great offensive line already there. And, the head coach doesn't really give or isn't really given too much credit. So I think Ben Johnson really going into this opportunity now, we're going to see what he could bring to the table right off the bat, because he's going to want to shape this offense into what he wants it to look like, not necessarily just his players winning games or doing well just on their own merit. He's there to give them direction and really give them an identity, and I think we're going to see it sooner rather than later. And while it's all exciting and everything like that, it's not to say that they don't desperately need upgrades in a lot of different spots to get to eventually where we think this could go. And I think offensive line is definitely the biggest one they could upgrade, because Caleb was the most sacked quarterback in the NFL. And there's some pretty intriguing free agents out there like Trey Smith or Kevin Seitler from the Lions as well. And some other offensive linemen are escaping my mind. But, there are some good candidates out there for the Bears to make that sort of upgrade. And you could also get another wide receiver if you feel fit, if Keenan Allen doesn't come back, some other guys maybe on a cheaper deal if that works out for them. But there's a couple spots where they definitely can improve. And you have the 10th overall selection in the draft as well. So overall, I expect other with the news of Ben Johnson and it coming so quickly, and how I mentioned that already other guys are being linked to joining him in Chicago, I think how this affects everything else kind of in like a macro sort of perspective is that now with one domino falling, arguably the biggest domino falling, I think we're going to start seeing the head coaching candidates and hires go back to back to back pretty quickly. There's already news around the Jets and Aaron Glenn potentially coming to an agreement. Nothing official yet, but it seems like they're very close. A couple other teams are having second interviews, like Robert Saleh's having a couple with the Raiders and the Jaguars. The Saints are having an interview with Mike McCarthy and other candidates as well. The Raiders are also being linked to Pete Carroll. So with the biggest guy already being taken off the market, you can see how everyone's going to start rushing to getting guys a lot quicker, like I mentioned. So, Dallas is also another one. So keep an eye out on that, or we'll surely talk about that on the upcoming shows once those become official. But the first and biggest name is now off the board. Ben Johnson is going to be the Chicago Bears head coach starting in 2025 and into the foreseeable future. Very exciting times in Chicago with that hire. And now with that being said, though, we're going to go back a little bit and start talking some more about the playoffs. And not so much about the games and really the specific teams, but just some overarching thoughts, some takeaways from the overall weekend that we had. Starting off with the ball security, the time of possession, and just really having control and managing the games really being prevalent in this postseason. I think that's been one of the main differences that we've seen from the teams that have moved on. So we're going to talk about it. Game managing versus, efficiency and the perfection that we're seeing out there that has really distinguished some of these teams from moving on and being sent home. So we'll touch on that a little bit more when we return after this.